Welcome to Got It Wrong with Will. My name is Meg Navatto, and I will be your guest host today. And my special guest today is Janelle Hartman. Hi, Janelle. How are you?
I'm good, Meg. How are you?
Good. I was just wondering if you could just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Janelle Hartman. I live in Astoria, Queens. I'm not originally from New York, but been in New York for about 30 years. I am a social worker by trade. During the day, I work at a nursing home on Roosevelt Island in the psychiatry department and work with people with behavioral issues and different things. And I've been there about 28 years.
Wow, that's a long time. That's nice.
And I think I'm here because of running.
Yes. So first I wanted to start out with, you recently just were awarded the Joe Kleinerman Award, which is given to somebody who has like outstanding and inspiring community service, and you are definitely one of those people to me. So you do a lot of volunteering. What guides you to the volunteering so much?
Well, first of all, I'm so blessed to have received that award and also so surprised by it.
No surprise here.
I started volunteering back in about 2012 when I was getting ready to do my first half marathon. I decided it was time to look behind the scenes and know what it was like to be a part of a race. And I thought the best way to know that was through volunteering. Well, little did I know the first bug that I had gotten was running. The second bug I got was volunteering. And I found it was the best way to really actually do what I thought was, in some ways, I felt like I was working on my master's degree in running because I was learning so much about the sport of running while volunteering, what it takes to put on a race, what it means, what it means to get people to those start lines and to the finish lines, and also being able to support people because so many people have supported me in my journey.
I love volunteering, but having the volunteers out there have definitely gotten me through a ton of tough races, and I honestly believe if you aren't racing a New York Road race, you're volunteering at one.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
Is there like a special moment you can think of that is your favorite moment of volunteering?
There's just been so many different ones, and I have volunteered for the marathon. I think it was 5 times before I actually did the marathon this year. And I think that energy is something you absolutely cannot match. I've worked the finish line every time, and I would do the finish walk-off, and the energy of the runners coming through, many of them just having done their, having finished the race, being really tired, needing fuel, unable to open a Gatorade bottle, and being able to welcome them back to Central Park and letting them know that if they need anything, sometimes their energy is really low and they actually need somebody to kind of assist them or medical assistance. But I think the volunteering at the marathon is amazing. It's kind of like the Super Bowl every year of, if I'm allowed to use that word, Super Bowl every year of running. But even with some of the smaller races, the short races, where you get like the Achilles race, when you get to see people who, with disabilities, people who've never done races, it's just an amazing experience. So I think every time I've gone out to volunteer, whether it's at the start line, whether it's the finish line, even at baggage, you get a chance to sort of support other people's running. And as like I said, so many people have supported me with my running.
Now, you said you started running in 2012?
Actually, 2011.
2011.
Just 2011. And then, and I started at the age of 49, so I kind of got in this late. And I got the bug at the Dash to the Finish Line. It was really probably the race that kind of gave me the bug. And then I was,
and that was your first race ever?
No, it wasn't. I had actually done the Komen breast cancer race, but it was an untimed race. The first actual road race with a timing was the Dash to the Finish Line, but it was also my first road race by myself, where I was running by myself. Nobody was sort of there with me, and I was, first of all, amazed that I could do it without having somebody sort of push me or say, you got to go. And that I enjoyed it so much running up 6th Avenue and then, of course, running across the finish line. I never thought that I would ever have the courage or the ability to actually one day finish that actual race, which I did this year. So I think that part of just getting into a race that really was so meaningful, it's hard not to go back to running, I think.
Of course. So you just finished the New York City Marathon this year.
Yes.
what made you take that leap?
Well, I think
A marathon is a lot.
It sure is. It sure is. And I realized that too. Knowing my pace is very, very slow. I've kind of become a symbol for one of the final finishers at many Roadrunner races, because I probably have, I don't think there's a record, and I don't think they have a record of who's been the final finisher.
But you were always with Peter Cha-Cha at the end of the races, yes.
That's right. So I have sort of done so many races where I've been either one of the final finishers or the final finisher for a race. Or sometimes I'm thinking, wait a minute, don't wait, I'm coming.
Just as a little tangent, how does that ever stop you from signing up for another one? Did that ever have a bad feeling for you? Or you were just like, whatever it is, at least you're finishing?
I think the first thing I had to get over, which a lot of people helped me do, was to to not feel bad about it and make sure that I didn't feel like I was holding anyone hostage waiting for me. So a lot of times I would make joke about it and say I'm the human sweep coming through. I tell volunteers, guess what, you're going to get to go home right now. But again, with my knowledge of volunteering and the staff, I know often how long they're going to be out there, and I've signed up for races that I also know were the ones that actually I could finish in a time that I didn't feel like people were staying hours later.
Right.
Except for the New York City Marathon.
Right.
And that's where it really was the leap for me, because I knew that I was going to be going beyond a time that normally the finish line stays open. And so I had to really understand that it was going to be okay, even with Roadrunners and with even myself, allowing myself to say it's okay that I'm going to finish into the night, it's going to be late, I'm going to be on the sidewalk, and give myself that permission that I would actually enjoy the race.
Because you're still finishing.
Yeah,
It's still
right.
an amazing accomplishment to finish any race, but let alone a marathon.
Right. So I think that was a thing. But the first thing was getting out of my own head about it, is that I would forgive myself for not being a middle of the packer, or that I was okay being the back of the packer.
Back of the packers kind of rule. We all know that.
Yeah. And I think we've kind of tried to make it cool this year. A friend of mine, I can't take credit for it, but she came up with the idea of the Love Corral, because the L is usually the last corral of the New York Roadrunners. And so she came up with this idea that we're in the Love Corral, because she had once heard a couple of people sort of, I don't know if they were making disparaging remarks, but, because you could use that L for other words like loser. And we decided that, you know what, we're going to call ourselves the Love Corral, and we're going to embrace that.
Right.
And not only we're going to embrace it, we're going to celebrate that. And
there's always going to be critics out there, and that's okay. And I agree. I find that I'm always my harshest critic. I'll always hear like I'm too slow, or I'm too fat, or whatever, and that's okay. Because that's on that person. But it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
I had to make peace within myself first and be like, no, you know what, that's on them. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. So do you have like any words of wisdom that you would give somebody who maybe is just kind of starting out to running, that maybe feels that way?
Well, I know that you were one of the people that I read your story, actually watched this show and saw your interview. I think it's important to look at the stories of some of us who've done it. I'm not saying mine is the most exciting, but other people's stories of being I say, you know what, it's okay. Give yourself the permission to take your journey the way your journey is. If your journey is faster, your journey is slower, your journey is whatever it is. If your journey is shorter, to never feel that you're doing less than what you can do, and to celebrate that journey. I think that it took me several years to get to even thinking about doing the marathon. And honestly, when I decided to do it, it was just basically because I felt if I don't do it this year, I'm going to be too old. So I better just do it this year to do it at 56. Right. So I just chose a year in which I saw my calendar open, and I said, okay, all I'm going to do is focus on doing the marathon. And that's what I did for an entire year last year. But I don't think if the idea that you're not a runner, if you do 5Ks or you do 10Ks, all those races are part of the running community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's exciting, and I think that there's going to be more people that are going to come out and support you than you realize. I mean, the support is overwhelming out there. People are still coming up to me and saying, I saw your finish, I see you at races, you're everywhere. And I say, well, I don't have much of a social life, this is all I do is run. or volunteer. And so people will come out and support you if you let them. They'll be there for you.
And I think that's a great, also one of the pluses about social media. I mean, I know there can be a lot of downfalls and snide remarks sometimes, but one of the pluses is you'll be amazed how many people reach out to you, and you'll be like, me, I inspire you? Like, I'm just some like slow runner who does her thing, but like, it is true. Like, I mean, you inspire me. I see you out there. I saw you out there all last year training. And it takes a lot. And I want to talk about that for a minute. Training for somebody who's slower takes more time. And, you know, when you have to do these longer runs, you can't fit it in before work usually, you know? You know, so like, talk about your running. You trained with the Galloway group.
Yes, I did. And they were amazing. The first thing that was great is that Jeff Galloway and also the group said, you will be able to do this. So to actually first believe it is actually, I think, the first step more than even putting your foot out and putting your mileage together. Because if you don't believe it, I think it becomes difficult for you to do it. So once I kind of said, all right, they're okay with the idea of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever time it takes for someone to finish a marathon, the Galloway method embraces you because they set the run walk according to your speed. So I really enjoyed working with the Galloway group this summer. We started training earlier than most groups, which is in May, and they're always, they have chapters throughout the country. And what was great was that I felt like I wasn't, first of all, having to keep up with anyone because it was my pace. The other thing is they lay out a really, you know, a marathon training program that fits the schedule, and most of the training things were on Saturdays. So I either did my long runs on Saturdays and then short runs during the week, but I knew that I could prepare for myself for Saturday runs, or if sometimes need be Sunday runs.
And do they have like a group that meets together?
There were a couple of people that were my pace, and I actually, at one point, I had one person that stayed with me throughout the marathon who was my pace from the Galloway group. And she was a seasoned veteran marathoner, so she was, you know, and so she was able to give me clues and everything about what to expect. But the great thing is that I knew kind of what was going to happen because she already had been there and said, okay, this is we're going to do this, and normally we do it this way. But I learned about what I needed to do and how to build up the mileage to get to what I needed to get to.
Building up the mileage, talk about that a little bit. Like, how fast did you go? Like, did you start out with really small mileage, and it's like, it's a walk-run thing?
Yeah, so I was in the 15:30. I'm still in the 15:30. You do a magic mile, and when you do the magic mile, it determines what they think is your best way to do your mileage. So 15:30 I do, which is 15 seconds run, 30 seconds walk.
Okay.
You can adjust that to go 20-20, and we did play around with that a little bit. But not much farther away from that formula because of what it takes for me to do a mile, which a magic mile is the fastest mile. You're going to do a straight mile, mostly running. You can do run walk, but according to that. So, and we stuck with that using either a Galloway interval timer, like sort of beat for, or if I was on my own, I would do it in my ear. I could hear it in my ear because I would use an app on my phone.
What was your nutrition like?
So since I did 5 half marathons, but I really learned that obviously, and I think everybody probably does their first marathon, the jump from the half to the full is such a big learning experience. So yeah, I had to learn. But first, I'd never needed to really use salt tablets or anything like that. So for me, first is being able to know how to space out goo, and I used Huma gel, and I used pretzels and a couple things like that, but salt tabs and things like that. My partner was sort of so interesting because she never really had to stop. She barely even used water, which was amazing to me. And we would be out there the same mileage. So when we built up our time, you know, we'd be out there for 6 hours, 7 hours. My 20-miler, you know, was getting close to 8 hours. So you kind of realize that, wow, it's you have to always have this fuel. And on marathon day, it was, I had a whole package ready, kind of ready of things with pretzels and different things, Gatorade on certain things. But I don't know if I found my perfect formula yet because it was my first round.
So now you just have to do another marathon to see.
Yeah, so.
Do you think you'll do another marathon?
Possibly, but I'd like to make it a lot shorter. I'd like to get home a little earlier.
Well, okay.
But yes, I'd like to see about doing it again. But
would it be New York City, or you think it
I
goes somewhere?
can't imagine doing it anywhere else.
I know.
I hate to say it. I just I've actually not done any destination races other than Long Island, so I haven't really gone beyond the city as far as races.
I'll do New York City every year if they let me. Between your racing and your volunteering, you do the 9+1, so you must qualify every year. I can't imagine that you don't. So you'll always have that option at least.
Yeah, I do, and I think that just because I enjoy, like I said, this is what I enjoy doing, is being part of that, and I can't imagine not doing it. Not running races, but this year I didn't sign up for any of the halves. I just really decided I wanted to give back, and I've done a lot of giving out a lot of medals. I hope to do, and hopefully we'll be giving out medals at the New York City Marathon this year.
So are you signed up for any races now?
I've already done 3 this year, and I'm going to do the Boomer 4-miler. I'll be actually all the 4-milers up to the 10K. I'll be running.
You'll be like, I'm just there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Be there anyway.
And of course, you can't miss the Queen's 10K, the Mini 10.
I love the
Achilles
Mini 10,
race.
yes.
Those to me, June is the most amazing month of racing in NYR, because those 3 races to me are incredible. And running with all the women up Central Park West.
It's like one of my favorite races. Just
Running in Queens, because that's my home borough, and also running part of the Achilles. When you see people, you can never, ever complain after you run an Achilles race.
You're right.
Doesn't care if it's humid. The people that are out there doing what they're doing with everything they've got, you can't beat it. So
let's talk about your marathon itself, like the day itself. Like, can you walk me through it? I know we had, me and my husband take a bus from New York City over to Staten Island, and then the bus leaves so early, and I don't start until the last wave, so you're there for a while.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Well, I took the Galloway bus, so I was able to meet a lot of different people from came in from different Galloway groups, and we just hung out for hours. And I was in the last wave of the last corral of the last. I was literally one of the last 20 people to cross the start line. So we literally turned around and we said, "That's us. That's all of us." And,
saving the best for last.
Right. And so quickly we were dispersed, and we realized we had one person we thought behind us, and that's what we were told. But basically we were already on the Verrazano Bridge, that we were the last.
Okay.
We already started last. So it's a comfortable place for me to be. I'm used to it. So it was interesting. I knew that a lot of stuff would be torn down, and sure enough it was. But the road was open throughout Brooklyn, which was great. So the course was still open. So that made it easy in the sense of we could do the course. When we got to the Pulaski, we knew we were sort of swept off to the sidewalk, all of which I had prepared emotionally for. I think that would be the thing that I'd always like to prepare anyone who would be in my speed category to be prepared to and train for being on the sidewalk. And so we did the Queensboro Bridge, which actually the sun set as we were going over the Queensboro Bridge.
Nice.
And it was beautiful. Honestly, it was probably one of the most prettiest things I've ever seen. The weather was perfect. A couple people sort of said, "You got the best weather ever," and I think we did, because literally when I finished, I didn't really need the heat sheet or the poncho. I need to go home. I didn't need anything per se, as far as I wasn't shaking or
Right.
And so we went up, and again, I had trained the last 10, so I was pretty prepared for First Avenue. I was prepared for the Bronx. I was prepared for the Fifth Avenue. And I think the most exciting thing is then I had a cheer squad waiting for me at Engineers Gate, which is 90th Street, from November Project, who, made sure I got to that finish line and cheered me all the way through the Central Park. And Central Park was still technically, it was open, but most people didn't know that. So it was empty in the sense of we were there, and NYR was also with us. They had a couple people on bikes making sure. People were like,
okay?
which one is Janelle? And I'm like, I'm here because Peter Chacha was waiting for me.
And that was his last race, right?
That was his last race, and I was his last finisher. Even though there was two of us, obviously I wanted my partner to go first, and I know that Peter and I were going to go together at the end. And so we did, holding hands through a cheer tunnel. I got a confetti cannon in my face, and it was quite, and I also, both my brother and sister surprised me at the finish line.
Oh, I love that.
And they both surprised me there, and they both surprised each other, not knowing each other was going to show up. So that was quite a moment.
That's a great
there,
moment.
and many people waited for. I mean, I still have people coming up and saying I was there that night.
And I know a lot of people were going to go try and make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just think, sometimes I feel like being in the back of the pack means you get the best cheer squad.
I think so.
You go to November Project in Brooklyn and New York City.
Yeah.
You go to both of them. I find them to be an extremely encouraging group of people.
Yeah.
Even though I had run a marathon before I started MP, I still didn't consider myself a runner until I became involved with them.
What November Project did for me, because I identified as a runner before I started NP, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for NP because I didn't think I was fast enough. So I knew Paul Leak from New York Roadrunners, and I said, you guys are super fast. Like, I would just be,
That's usually when he grabs me.
Yeah. And then they decided to have one at Astoria Park, which is literally down the hill from me.
Okay.
So I went in the pouring rain, my first MP, and of course I loved it, and everyone was welcoming, and I got hooked. And of course I wanted my spray paint, and so I started going. Also just being part of cheer squad and taking photos, and developed the fact that I made everyone do a selfie now. So if you come to MP and you see me, I'm probably going to make you do a selfie with me.
Yes.
So it's just been a great community. And I have met so many people, and they've been so, like I said, so encouraging. So many, most of them younger than me. I mean, I'm one of the old people in there. There's a few of us that are a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, I realized that I'm like, oh, I'm old enough to be your mother. Okay, all right. Now I know why you don't get my references all the time, but it's okay. But so, when did you start at NP?
I started NP, I think it's about 3 years I'm in,
Oh, we should probably clarify. NP means we're talking about November Project,
yes,
right?
November
And there's one in New York
Project,
City, and there's one in Brooklyn, just in case anybody wants to Google that.
And throughout the country.
Yes, a lot.
And the world.
But which is where we actually met each other also.
Yeah.
You were part of a thing that New York Roadrunners had called It Moved Me.
Yes, I was one of 26 people that they highlighted our marathon journey, and I wrote a little blog about why I was doing the marathon. So it was sort of, I already knew that people would be looking out for me, and that also that the idea of being the final finisher. So I don't know if it's a newer thing. I think it kind of is, the idea of highlighting people who actually finish last versus the idea of just sort of finishing. I think the marathon always tells amazing stories of people who've overcome so many things, illness and disability and different things. But I think the actual just embracing the idea of being the final finisher, I said, well, I guess once I embraced it myself,
right,
that it's okay to do that, because somebody has to be the final finisher.
Somebody has to be.
Yeah.
And what was your time approximately? Like, if you don't
It was 10 hours and 40-something minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot to be out there
Yeah.
for 10 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an easy feat. And I've even heard, like, some of the elite runners even say it, don't congratulate me. I was only out there for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Look at these people who are out there 5,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, and it does take a lot. So it's something that should be highlighted because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of, it's an entire day.
Yeah, I don't have an actual official finishing time. Those of us who finished after the finish, that they gave us a finishing time, but we're not actually in the finisher
Official?
record,
Okay.
which I kind of that was one of the first things I actually had to accept before I even started the whole journey, because
Right.
I knew that I would probably not make the cutoff. I
Mm-hmm.
believe 7 p.m. is when the mats technically come up,
Okay.
or the tracker goes off, and the tracker went off for me at around 10K for me. So
Okay.
I already knew people couldn't even track me. So you had that was probably the first and hardest thing for me to accept, was that I wasn't going to have an official time, even if it was, 2 days, 3 weeks, 4
Right.
months, whatever.
The
It
time
took me a while.
doesn't really matter. It's,
Yeah.
And being official and non-official kind of doesn't matter either. You
Yeah.
cross that finish line, and you cross the same finish line that everybody else did. And I
they
think
kept it
that's
up.
amazing.
And they kept everything
Yes.
up, including the
And I do
jumbotron
love,
and everything.
I think it's great that they are,
Yeah.
highlighting the final
Yeah.
finishers, because I think that's just an amazing thing.
I think the group project finish, and also just that project finish, which came out to support that, but also Roadrunners really looked into that and realized that people needed to be supported no matter how long it took them
Absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely.
And you can look in the history, which we won't do today, but of some of the most amazing final finishers who took longer than I did out there. And one of them I saw actually when she finished in, I believe it was 2013, a woman named Zoe. And I'm actually in the photo. I found myself in the photo when she finished 2 days, I think it was a day later.
Oh my
On a
gosh.
Monday. She finished on a Monday night, and we were having the marathon party
Wow,
to
that's
thank the
amazing.
volunteers, and we came out to see her. And I found this photo of me that I can't share because it's not my image,
Right.
but it's me taking a photo of her finishing. And I thought that was very poignant. She had done it with the Guardian Angels. Apparently, she'd been doing it for years.
Love
So
that. See, these are
I-
great stories. There's a lot of great stories about
Yeah, there is.
marathons.
There is.
And yours is definitely one of them.
yeah, thank you.
So-
Thank you.
And
Okay.
it has been a joy
Thank
to
you,
talk to
Meg.
you. And we hope to see you out on the course, whether or not you're running or volunteering. And if anybody out there sees Janelle on the course, get a hug from her. She gives out the
Absolutely.
best hugs.
Yes, and I love seeing you and Pete as well.
you.
And always, you both have such amazing accomplishment. Ultra runner,
you.
you are. You're being modest, and your husband as well, Ironman, and doing all these amazing things. So you're just
Thank you.
giving right back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody today for being here. Thank you to Will Sanchez and Manhattan Neighborhood Network for hosting us. And of course, thank you to Janelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.